I was like,
Bob.
Bob, yeah, Bob, that's what it was. All right, welcome back to the Jacob Gospel Podcast, part two of the boundary series that we're doing here. So, we left off last week with talking about, or getting into talking about consequences with boundaries or crossing boundaries. So, we ended up talking about like if you don't pay your bill with Slimco, they have no emotion and they just turn off the light switch. So like they don't call in and bitch you out or anything like that for it. So Brandy, being the boundaries expert, talk about what's the consequence of a boundary? Like tell us about consequences and boundaries and how we navigate that a little bit.
So basically, there's really no point in having a boundary if there's not going to be a consequence for crossing it, right?
Okay.
So, with...
Explain it. Give me an example of that.
So, with your kids, it's probably, the easiest explanation. If I set a boundary with the girls or if there's a rule in place, but there's no consequence to follow up, then there's really no reason for them to honor that boundary or follow that rule. So our middle daughter is about to be 14. When she was younger, first grade, second grade, third grade, every day when she would come home, I would have to say, do your homework, read your books, do your homework, read your books. That was a constant thing. And as she got older, she became more responsible. I slacked off on that because she's old enough to know that she has responsibilities and she has things that she needs to take care of. So I have a boundary with her when it comes to schoolwork. She knows that she has to maintain a certain grade on her report card each 9 weeks. I don't remind her every single day. She knows.
So you don't tell her what to do every day?
No, she's at the point now where I don't have to because she has outgrown those beginning stages. So when she comes home, she has a choice. She can either do her homework or she cannot. And what's going to happen if she doesn't do her homework? Well, then she might have a bad grade on a test. Well, what happens if she has too many bad grades on a test? Then she's going to have a bad grade on the report card. That's where the consequence comes in.
Got you.
If a room is not clean, and the girls, I have a boundary where I need you to keep your room clean. I need you to keep your space clean. So I don't feel like Claire, especially being 14, I have to remind her every single day to keep her room clean. She knows that. Caroline, she needs a little more reminding.
She's 7.
But they both have a consequence. If your room is not clean, there's a consequence. It may be that I go in and start throwing things away myself. Neither one of them wants that.
Yeah, there's a punishment that comes with it.
But they both have a consequence. How I approach it is a little different because of their ages, but you have to have a consequence. It may be, let's say, your spouse is a person who gets really angry and likes to yell. So you have to communicate the boundary. I love you and I understand that you're upset. But if you continue to yell and scream, I'm going to get up and walk out. I'm not going to talk to you while you're yelling and screaming. So you set the boundary, you set the expectation, and then there's the consequence. The consequence is I'm just going to walk out.
Yeah.
If you have a child who's always late, they're never on time. You can yell and scream all you want to say, you need to be on time, you need to be early, you need to get ready earlier. But chances are it's not going to change. But if you walk out that door and get in the car and back out the driveway and they're left behind, that's the consequence.
It'll probably be the last time they do that.
That's right. They may be inclined to be ready a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So like when you take the emotion out of it, that's basically what you're doing.
That's right.
Is you got a boundary set, you're not getting mad, you're not, throwing an adult temper tantrum on your kids or anyone else's that matter. But there's just a simple consequence for the action.
Right.
So like, with Caroline, there's no, like you're not going to fuss at her and do all kind of crazy things. Like like you remind her and sternly remind her because she's 7, hey, I need you to clean the room. Hey, I need you to, do whatever. It's kind of like taking a bath. Like you have to remind her, hey, look, it's time to take a bath because she's 7.
Yes.
With Claire, you don't remind her to take a bath.
Mm-hmm.
She don't have to take a bath. You're not going to make her go bathe.
Mm-hmm.
But she's old enough and has enough awareness to know if I don't go bathe, I'm going to smell the ass.
And nobody's going to want to be close to me.
Right. So like I need, and like, she understands now personal hygiene. She wants to be clean. You don't have to remind her to brush her teeth or anything because she's old enough to know. Yeah. If she doesn't do it, there's a consequence that's self-inflicted on that.
Right.
So she gets that.
Mm-hmm.
The room, you don't get mad at her for cleaning, which for the record, Claire never has a dirty room. Claire keeps her stuff like super clean. She don't even let our bougie dog, go inside the room at all, just in case the possibility that she might use the bathroom in the room or lick something, or Claire's like a clean freak. But just for example, if Claire would have something go on with the room that needs to be clean, there would just be a simple consequence with it. You wouldn't lose your mind and go all crazy on Claire. Right. And the same with me. Like, I mean, we argue and have fights and do all those things, but like, there's never like a screaming match. I don't feel like between us where it's like out of control. It's like something happens and one of us catches our head and be like, no, you're not going to talk to me like that, and we're going to walk out. Yeah. But then with other people, same thing. There has to be a consequence that goes with it. And I feel like I'm an emotional guy. So I'm emotionally driven on a lot of things. So me taking emotion out of the situation is very hard.
It's not easy.
Very hard. So, our 20-year-old just, left. Like she's out the house. She's gone. So like that's emotionally, and this is recent. Like this just happened. So like she's doing a way better job with emotions than I am, because like there's all kind of things that come in your mind. You want her to do good, but you want her to need you. You want her to be on her own, but you want to make sure she's good. You want to, and the hardest thing is to realize that she's a freaking adult, just like everybody in this room.
Yep. And
she's going to fail just like everybody in this room. And she's going to hurt, and she's got to get knocked around, and she's got to jump off the cliff just like everybody in this room. But guess what? The consequences from all the actions and choices that she makes, she has to pay them just like everybody else in this room. Mm-hmm. I feel like parents struggle with that a lot. I feel like, man, we're aware of it and we struggle with it. So if parents are not aware of it, they're just, it's like a total plane crash. It's just an atom bomb. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you navigate that? How do you go about your day, especially with kids, and take emotion out of it? Because again, you remember, like most parents, they want to see their kid succeed. They don't want their kid to hurt. They want to go and do things for them. And at some point, you have to stop doing things for them. Mm-hmm. And I think most parents cross that bridge whenever their kid becomes an adult. And they're like, oh, they're out of the house. So now they could go do everything themselves. But really what Brandy's trying to say is like Caroline, she's 7, where there's some things now that Brandy don't tell Caroline to do. Like, it's time to go to bed. Like, you don't make her go to sleep. Like, she's 7. She knows she has to sleep. It's time to go to bed. If she decides to stay up and, with her eyes wide open all night, the consequence is she's going to be tired the next day. Like, mm-hmm. she's going to have to deal with that on her own. Yeah. And as they age, like you said, like Claire, you don't remind her to do her homework anymore. She knows there's a consequence that goes with it. You don't remind her to bathe. You don't remind her to do. So like, what I feel like is you're constantly giving responsibility over to the kids, mm-hmm. Because it's personal. It's their personal responsibility. Right. So each year, each maturity level, you start turning things over to them. That way, when they become an adult and they decide to move out, get married, and have kids of their own, again, I'm not going to say ready, because as parents you feel that our kids are never ready, but they're going to be more ready. They're going to be more prepared because they're going to at least have that personal responsibility. So the problem with kids is that the problem with friendships and just acquaintances, it could be coworkers. Mm-hmm. Personal responsibility, like how do you navigate that? Like how, because I feel like it's a parallel line, just like with your husband and kids and family, and extended family really could fall into this category with work and friends. Mm-hmm. I feel like, because it's more of a friendship relation than a family, but it kind of has that little tie. Mm-hmm. Where we're family, so you expected to do things for me,
right?
So how does that personal responsibility, like how do you set that boundary with a friend and hold that consequence for when they cross that boundary? Can you give us an example on that?
Let me think
that
about
doesn't
it.
Incriminate anybody?
Right. Well, it's just like anything else, we have to understand what we're responsible for, and we have to understand the difference between hurt and harm. So if I have a friend who is constantly, let's just say, needing to vent or dump. Some people, they just always want to complain. They have everything to complain about. And you're that person. You're that person that they just use to kind of just, dump all of their worries and fears and complaints onto you. Well, it's not really, you want to be a good friend and you want to be able to listen and you want to be able to give advice. But sometimes people don't want to hear your advice. They don't want to hear your opinion. They really just want to be able to dump all their negativity onto you. So there's people like that. Well, you have to be able to tell that person in a loving way, I understand if you're feeling frustrated, but, if I don't think I can be that person that you constantly dump on. Sometimes it's just standing up for yourself to say, maybe you should go talk to a counselor about that.
Yeah.
Maybe, and sometimes it could be that you just have to distance yourself from that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that because I feel like there's certain boundaries, kind of like we talked about the 5 closest people to us, and then, the rings of relationship, I guess you could call it, where boundaries are probably set like that too. Certain people could come in a certain gate, and but they can't come in the inner one.
Inner gate.
And so I feel like this is great. This is a great conversation. What I want to do now, I feel like I want to get really, really practical. Like, how do you deal with the guilt? Because I hear a lot of people talking about, we get questions all the time, well, if I don't do this, I'm going to feel guilty.
Yes.
And this could be with friends, kids, especially kids, because kids are the best manipulators on the planet. How do you, and family is the best. I'm telling you, they can guilt you into anything.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you'll be helping them hide bodies in the woods. It's just disclaimer, that's never happened with any of us. But you know what I'm saying? I just say that to create a point. They use the relationship to guilt you into giving them what they need.
What they want.
So it's wrong, or it may not be wrong, but you just don't want to do that. But then you feel guilty if you don't. How do you deal with that?
Well, you have to. It's all about perspective. Okay, so I learned this from Dr. Phil. As a parent, let's say one of my kids does something that gets them in trouble. Either they do something at school, or they make a bad grade, or whatever it is. And I choose not to discipline them in any way, not to have any sort of a punishment or a consequence, because if I punish them, then it makes me feel bad. And I don't want them to feel bad, and I don't want to feel bad. But my job is to be a parent. So if I don't have a consequence, that's really just me being selfish, worrying more about how it makes me feel than actually doing the job of being the parent. Because being a parent is hard and sometimes it sucks. But, you know, like you said the other day, it hurts me more than it hurts you.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that's how it is.
Yeah.
It hurts us to see our kids hurt. But if I don't do something because it hurts me, that's me being selfish and worrying more about my feelings than what's actually best for the child that I'm trying to take care of.
Yeah. So that
It's perspective.
Yeah. So like, yeah, you're protecting yourself
Because I don't want to
with
feel
the
guilty.
guilt, right?
I don't want to feel guilty, so I'm not going to have a consequence
So,
when
yeah.
actually that's just me being selfish.
Yeah. So like I feel like, you know, especially with us, because we have a blended family, so we have to deal with. I don't have any previous kids. You had 2 previous kids, so we have to deal with ex-husbands and a stepmom over there, and then, you know, he has to deal with an ex-wife and a stepdad over here. So there's always, and we have 2 totally different personalities, 2 totally different views on
2
life.
households.
And right, the way we do life is way different. And it's, you know, other people, so like the exes can make you feel guilty about doing certain things or not, and they use the kids, and then so like specifically on that, like there's things that we do that we're trying to help the kids, but if it doesn't agree with the other household, then they bring guilt and shame into it.
Yeah.
By using the kids and kind of
That can
dealing
happen,
with
yeah.
that. And how do you navigate that? Like, how do you deal with that situation? Because, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that really get emotional like I do about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, want to, you know, just deal with it in an unhealthy way.
Right. The whole problem, I say the biggest problem with people having healthy boundaries and sticking to their healthy boundaries is fear. Fear is probably the root of all boundary problems, because if I have a healthy boundary, somebody might not like me because I might have to say no. Somebody might be upset with me because I have to say no, or you know what I'm saying? So it's fear. If I say no to my girls when they want something, well, then they might be upset with me, and then they may run to their dad. Or you may be upset with me if I say no, and then I don't like it whenever you're upset with me, and so now my feelings are hurt. And so a lot of times the problem is fear. I have fear, even though that person, I don't even like that person, I still don't want to think that they don't like me.
Right.
So I'm afraid. So it's all about the fear that you have of either upsetting someone or hurting someone's feelings. But what we have to remember is that God is the answer to everything. So even though I'm afraid, the hardest part is that you have to do what you know is right and trust God to take care of the rest. And that's not easy to do. But ultimately that's the answer. So if I'm afraid that one of my girls is going to be upset with me, they may rebel, they may, you know, whatever, I have to do what I know God wants me to do and trust Him to take care of the rest. And that's how you have to navigate it. With your friends, with your boss, with your spouse, with your family, your parents, every single relationship. You have to do what you know God wants you to do and trust Him to take care of the rest.
You said something that really stuck out. So you know, it's fear driven, you know, for one. And then you said do the right thing. And I feel like, especially like with blended families, you have people on both sides that want to do the right thing, and then you have people that just want to be right. And the people who want to do the right thing is usually the people who are feeling the fear, that try to navigate and then end up trying to protect themselves and do all that thing where it's fear driven, against the people who just want to be right. So if you want to be right, there's really no moral and ethics in it, because you'll do whatever it takes to be right.
Fair play. That's right.
It's just like war.
That's right. All's fair.
Right. So when you're trying to deal with people like that, those people are going to go and talk about you. They're going to spread rumors and lies about you. They're gonna try to manipulate everyone around them to agree with them, because they don't want to do the right thing. They want to be right. Mm-hmm. So if I could get Heidi to agree with me, I could be dead wrong. But if she agrees with me and Brandy agrees with me, then I'm right. And I feel good. Mm-hmm. My ego is huge. But it doesn't make me right.
Right. And that's not the best thing for your kids that you're trying to raise and teach. And
so when you said right there is like having to do the right thing. So basically what you're saying is you can't care about what that other person is doing, mm-hmm. whether they want to be right, whether they want to do the right thing, whatever it is going on the other side, you could only control what's going on within your boundary.
That's right.
So how do you want to close? What's the last tip that you have to give everybody here on boundaries?
I think the important thing to remember is that boundaries are not easy. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and decide, today I'm going to have healthy boundaries, and it's just going to happen overnight. It really, really takes work, and it really takes practice. And the most important thing is to remember to ask God for help, because you really can't do it on your own. He has to help you through it.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, we thank you for watching. And if you find this video helpful, man, share it with everybody. Make sure that you like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and follow us on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell on YouTube so you can get alerted every time a video drops, which should be every Wednesday. I think it's every Wednesday. Yeah. So anyway, you can find us if you've got any questions or suggestions for topics. Make sure you email that to